Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, December 18th. A lot to talk about this morning. We have a very interesting and volatile weather pattern going forward, not only for next week, but I think the following week as well. And I have no doubt that there will be cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S., make it even more interesting as we go forward through the latter part of December into the early part of January. We also have the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on Monday, December 21st. Of course, that depends on the cloud cover, but right after sunset, you may see Jupiter and Saturn so close to get together that in the low southwestern sky that they appear as one very, very bright star, or maybe, depending on your viewing conditions, you'll be able to see a double planet very, very close together, the likes of which we haven't seen in many, many centuries. And just go to the Perspecta Weather website to see more details on the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Before we get to the weather going forward, and again, very volatile weather pattern, lots of cold air around, perhaps even a major cold blast for the central and eastern U.S. later next week, just in time for Christmas possibly in the eastern U.S., which is next Friday, 1 week away. But before we get to that, let's talk about the first major winter storm of the season that just took place from Wednesday into Thursday across the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S. Just wanted to kind of recap the snow total situation for that particular storm. Quite interesting indeed. This is the reports through midday yesterday, which captured most of it. Maybe a little bit more was added on into New England. But first and foremost, take a look at this area right here across the southern part of New York State. Places like Binghamton, New York, Newark Valley, New York, ended up with anywhere from 40 inches in Binghamton to 44 inches in Newark Valley, New York. So that is the bullseye region right in this area right here, the very far northern part of Pennsylvania into the southern part of New York. Again, the highest report seen was about 44 inches in Newark Valley, New York. Meanwhile, in the I-95 corridor region, there was mixing certainly heavily involved with some heavy sleet in Philadelphia metro region, for example, mixed sleet snow pattern in New York City, and certainly the D.C. metro region had a lot of mixing in as well. And of course that lowered snow accumulations. In the D.C. metro region, there were many, many reports of about 2 or 3 inches of snow, 2.3 inches I believe at Dulles Airport. Similar in Vienna, Virginia. Springfield, Virginia had 2 or 3 inches. Bethesda, Maryland, 2 or 3 inches. National Airport, Reagan National Airport came in officially with a trace. Seems a little underdone. There's often suspicious reports coming out of National Airport. DCA, I'm not sure if there's a human observer there or if it's an automated station or what, but generally 2 to 3 inches, especially on the western side of the district. Southeast of the district, little if any snow, maybe a dusting places like Crofton, Maryland, before it changed over. Now up across Philadelphia, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches on average in the Philadelphia metro region, with a lot of sleet mixed in as well. It turned out to be the morning after very compact snow with layers of ice included. Philadelphia International Airport came in with an official 6.6 inches, and that is only the 11th time there's been a snowstorm in December recorded at Philadelphia, which goes all the way back to the 1800s. Only the 11th time with 6+ inches of snow in a December snow event. Now, an interesting note, 10 out of those 11 winters featured another snow event during the winter season of 6+ inches. So if you're a snow lover in the Philly metro region, you have a strong reason to believe there may be another 6+ inch type of snow event during this upcoming season. Of course, we're still early in the game here. This is a 6+ inch type of event, only in the middle part of December, not even the official beginning of astronomical winter. In New York City, where there was some mixing, ended up with around 10 inches of snow or so in the Central Park region, a little bit less Other areas, JFK Airport, I believe, ended up with maybe 6+ inches. At LaGuardia, 8+ inches, around 10 inches again in Central Park, and there was some mixing with sleet, not only in New York City, but across Long Island as well. From southern New Jersey, across southern half of Delmarva Peninsula, southeastern Maryland, southeastern Virginia, almost all rain. And again, ocean water temperature still relatively warm this time of the year, about a 60-degree reading last I saw a few days ago, just off the just to the southeast of the southern tip of New Jersey, east of the Delmarva Peninsula. So that helped to contribute to primarily rain in those areas. And again, bullseye region, way up there in the southern part of New York State, with as much as 44 inches from the first major winter storm of the season. And again, this extended all the way up throughout New York State, and even into well up into New England as well, with significant snow cutting across southern part of Vermont and New Hampshire. That's it for the first winter storm. Let's now look forward to a very volatile and cold weather pattern over the next couple of weeks. Let's first take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly pattern from last night's operational run of the GFS at 0Z, and we'll just point out numerous waves of energy will be coming into the central and eastern U.S. Many times it looks like we'll have some high latitude blocking. Again, this previous winter storm was set up by strong blocking across Greenland, northern Canada. That helped to produce a very strong and slow-moving high-pressure system over southeastern Canada, set the stage for this first major winter storm of the season. And we'll see some similarities to the pattern going forward, especially around Christmas Day, which is a very interesting time period indeed for the eastern U.S. Next Thursday night, Friday time frame we're talking about. First of all, starting off, let's move forward in time here. This is starting off the day on Friday morning. Some snow shower activity this morning in the D.C. metro region from a weak disturbance, even a dusting in some areas. Generally high pressure and control for the next couple of days, but let's kind of push forward rapidly here. We have, by the early part of next week, let's say the Monday time frame, kind of an interesting look here, and we'll have to monitor this over the next few days. There'll be another wave of energy that takes on a negative tilt. That means the orientation of the trough axis extends from the northwest, right in this area right here, to the southeast. In fact, let me just draw that in here. A negative trough axis like that. And what that tends to do is it adds to upward motion on the northeast side of that trough axis. In this case, it'll be maybe over the mid-Atlantic region, and more likely over the northeastern U.S. Bottom line is, this wave early next week bears watching. It could set off the development of a low-pressure system. Let's now move forward beyond that. Watch what happens here as we go through maybe a brief warm-up Wednesday, Thursday time frame, but then looks like be a serious cold blast of air, probably the coldest air of the season so far, pouring into the center part of the nation by the middle part of next week, sliding slowly to the east. And look at this, by next Thursday, which is Christmas Eve, that cold blast, and again, perhaps the coldest air of the season so far, pours into the central part of the nation. And watch what happens up across northeastern Canada and Greenland. By the time we get to Christmas morning, this is next Friday, a week from now, Christmas morning, tremendous higher heights than normal, higher pressure than normal. Again, a blocking type of situation, perhaps setting up about a week from now. Not all that different from what we just went through here. And look at this trough setting up in the east, very likely to have low pressure forming along the leading edge of this very cold air mass. Sometime again in the Thursday, Friday time frame of late next week, low pressure could form in that tight temperature gradient at the leading edge of that cold air mass. And a very interesting setup here. We'll have to monitor this as we go through the next several days, with lots of blocking up to the north. And again, something we'll have to watch for, a possible rain changing to snow type of scenario for the mid-Atlantic region. Just too early to say, but this kind of a pattern certainly raises some red flags, raises the interest, not only what's going on here in the eastern part of the U.S., eastern half of the U.S., and up across the northern latitudes, but even a ridge popping up here along across the far western part of the U.S. and southwestern part of Canada. Very volatile weather pattern, very interesting look to it. And let's just move forward quickly just to point out multiple other waves of energy, and look at that over Greenland here by Sunday, December 27th. And we have another wave of energy here moving in the beginning of the following week, the last week of the month here. And it just continues on and on. We go into the middle part, the last part of the month of December. Here we are now, New Year's Eve. Look at that. Very, very strong blocking over Greenland, and still other waves of energy coming into the eastern U.S., and it just kind of goes on and on here into the early part of January. We are now 2 weeks from now, a little bit more than 2 weeks from now, Saturday, January 2nd. Very interesting weather pattern over the next couple of weeks for the central and eastern U.S. Well, let's now walk through the operational GFS surface forecast maps going forward here. Again, a lot of interesting weather here. Let's just start off the day today. Again, some snow shower activity early this morning in the D.C. metro region, even a dusting in some areas. Generally, high pressure takes control for the afternoon and during the day on Saturday. Here it is, high pressure in control. Then we have another weak disturbance coming into the eastern states on Sunday. This is the Sunday afternoon forecast map. Certainly the chance for a few rain showers or snow showers or a mixture of the two on Sunday. Something we'll have to watch, make sure it's nothing more than that. And then we have that set up for the early part of next week, where a wave of energy dropping across the upper Midwest and low pressure already situated along the Carolina coastline. This is the forecast map for Monday morning. Keep in mind that upper level wave takes on that negatively tilted trough axis. Always a red flag for potential development of this sort of system here. And really, in the Monday, Tuesday time frame right here, GFS is not doing much right now with this particular pattern in the Monday night time frame, but something to watch. I think it's a volatile situation here. And then we go forward here and we start to look at this cold blast of air by Christmas Eve. This is Christmas Eve, very cold air right in this region right here. A tight temperature gradient at the leading edge of that cold blast. May very well be the coldest air of the season so far, and supported by a lot of energy in the upper part of the atmosphere. And here we go by Christmas Eve night. This is next Thursday night, and frontal system slows down along the eastern seaboard. Very well could be low pressure right along that tight temperature gradient, and could result in a rain changing to snow situation for the mid-Atlantic region, especially for the northeastern U.S. And then potential for that very cold air to pour in just in time for Christmas Day, Friday, next Friday, a week from now, into the eastern U.S. And then it continues to stay unstable, volatile beyond that going into the following weekend. There will be additional cold air outbreaks. Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to show one last thing that raises interest here for going forward over the next few weeks. We often look at the stratosphere this time of the year to see if there's a potential, what we call stratospheric warming event over the polar region that often results in a displacement of very cold air from the polar regions down into the middle latitude. Sometimes that cold air extends onto the other side of the North Pole, other times down into the U.S. and Canada. This is the temperature pattern right now, way up at the top of the atmosphere, 10 millibar level. And what we're looking at is a kind of a top-down view. North Pole right in this region right here, and the U.S. is hard to see on this particular map, is right in this region right here. And so we have kind of a stretched out polar vortex. I mean, normally this time of the year you have a polar vortex sitting over the polar region, but that can be displaced by a stratospheric warming event. It can be broken up into pieces, And again, it can lead to cold air outbreaks pouring into the central and eastern U.S., Canada. So this is part of the reason why we have kind of a cold pattern now in the Canada and the U.S., a stretched out polar vortex. But watch what happens when we go out 10 days, and this is a forecast map for 10 days from now from the GFS. Look at that. This is 10 days from now, around December 28th or so. That polar vortex kind of intensifies in terms of its coldness, in terms of the temperature pattern. Kind of drops a little bit farther to the south, and this is a substantial warm-up in the stratosphere on the other side of the pole. But indeed, it looks like a stratospheric warming event is a possibility over the next couple of weeks, and that could make it interesting going forward through the month of January, something we will continue to monitor over the next several days. But the potential for a stratospheric warming event which could displace the typically placed polar vortex and send some cold air outbreaks into Canada or into the U.S. over the next few weeks going into the month of January. So very interesting weather pattern going forward. Volatile, a lot of cold air outbreaks as well, and we'll especially focus in on the situation, potential situation late next week, just in time for Christmas Day. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, this is meteorologist Paul Dorian.